If you've ever seen this sign in your yard and thought it was safe to go back after 24 hours, I just want to give you a few things to think about going forward. So when I treated customers with synthetic chemicals, I too put these signs in the yard, and I honestly thought that after 24 to 48 hours, the product was dry and that the customer, their pets, their kids were no longer at risk of exposure, which is the whole purpose of the sign. Unfortunately, I learned that exposure has nothing to do with wetness or dryness of the chemical. It's actually based on half-life, or how long it takes for half of that chemical to cycle through or no longer be effective. And the half-life of most of the chemicals that we use in lawn care or in a synthetic program is 10 to 70 days. So that sign that's in your yard for, 24 to 48 hours does not mean that you, your pets, or your children are no longer exposed. If that half-life is 10 to 70 days, then that means it takes 20 to 140 days for that chemical to no longer be exposed, to you and your loved ones. Now, I started researching this because when I sprayed synthetically, I would have like real bad throat irritation, and I wore all the PPE. I was trained in hazardous response at UPS, so like I took that stuff serious when I started my own lawn care company. And I wore like the chemical resistant gloves, and they'll see me out there. I used to put my big boots and stuff on, and I had the mask, and when I mixed the chemicals, I wore my apron. I did all the PPE steps that I was supposed to take, but I still started to get like really bad throat irritation, and that kind of started concerning me. So I went to researching, and that's when I learned about half-life and the exposure that I still had to those chemicals. And then I really started thinking, like, why do I really have to wear all of this PPE anywhere? Like, if this is so unsafe for me and I have to take all these safety measures, how in the world is it safe for another life form, the lawn that I'm putting it on? So the truth about these products is that they are biocides. They were created in World War II for chemical warfare to compromise life. Bio meaning life, side meaning to kill. So they were literally created to kill life. And we kept the side part. We just changed the name of what they were supposed to kill. Insecticide, herbicide, fungicide, but all of those are still life forms. So anytime you're using those chemicals, the whole purpose are to compromise life, and that also unfortunately includes our life. We're a life form, so the same chemicals that they use for like I said, to kill insects and weeds and fungus, they also harm us once exposed. So after World War II, all of these chemicals are left over, and I don't know how. I don't know if they spilled it somewhere or whatever happened, but they found out that it killed weeds. It worked on weeds. It worked on the lawns, and that formulation was perfected until it became widespread use for lawn care. The crazy thing is that the EPA, there's always an EPA number on these, and that's the Environmental Protection Agency, but there's always an EPA number on these products. But the EPA doesn't test these products themselves. They just certify the testing of the actual company who created the product. So that company does the test or has a third party do the test, and then they just submit that information to the EPA. The EPA doesn't actually perform these tests themselves. Also, the EPA only certifies the active ingredient. They don't certify the product formulation. So the active ingredient, the thing that actually kills whatever they say is going to kill, is the only thing that they're testing for, but that's usually mixed with a bunch of other things, and I'm going to show you here on this label. So if you look, the active ingredient is glyphosate, which is also in Roundup, and we know about all the lawsuits and all going on with that. But where it says other ingredients, is 59%. 41% of the active ingredient, but the majority of this product is quote-unquote other ingredients. Right on the label, it says hazardous to humans and domestic animals. Keep out of the reach of children. Now, the worst part about these other ingredients is that they don't have to be disclosed. They're actually protected by trade secrets. So we don't know what they are, how much are in there, or how they interact with the active ingredient, because none of that was ever tested and not required by the EPA. Most of these chemicals are more toxic than the actual active ingredient, and you know, they give the product more of a killing power. And we don't know the effect that they have on human health. Basically, the EPA has taken a position of the marketplace. If people buy it, then it must work, and that's irregardless of health, you know. And unfortunately, with a lot of things, even, you know, standard American diet and so on and so forth, it takes years before you start to see the cumulative health effect on a community, you know, on a society. The kicker for me is that the EPA assigns a LDL 50 number to all of these products, which is the lethal dose that will kill a lab animal. That number is then extrapolated to the entire population. But the thing is, it's based on a 150-pound male. Now, I'm more than 150 pounds. I'm a male, but I have a 7-pound Pomeranian Chihuahua, and my wife is nowhere near 150 pounds. And I don't have kids yet, but in all the neighborhoods that I service in the HOAs, those kids are not 150 pounds. And the ducks and, you know, the other dogs and the cats and so on and so forth is not 150 pounds. So this LDL 50 number, or these recommendations of how much is, you know, quote unquote safe for the environment, doesn't take into the effect the most vulnerable people in the society. You know, how does it affect old people? How does it affect children? How does it affect smaller pets, and so on and so forth? So that LDL 50 number is not something that's really inclusive of the population as a whole, and especially the most vulnerable people in the population. Another way that the EPA approves things is low risk at high dose. But one thing that they don't test is the risk at a repeated low dose, because that's what happens when you get your lawn treated. It's something that's consistent. It happens over and over and over 4, 5, 6 times a year. And what research has shown, independent of the EPA, is that this stuff is very high risk to children and more vulnerable parts of the society at a repeated low dose. So what's the bottom line? Basically, just because a product has an EPA number or somebody sprays it and it's assumed safe, we cannot assume that it's safe for the entire population, for our more vulnerable parts of the population. And also, you cannot assume that just because a product is quote unquote dry, that you can no longer be exposed to it. It had 24 to 48 hours is nowhere near the half-life of these products, and they stay around in the environment for a long time. Of course, my solution is to try a more organic approach to lawn care, but even if you didn't want to take that approach, I guess the overall conclusion is to just be mindful. Don't be naive in thinking that, you know, it's safe for your kids and your pets to go out in the yard after the lawn has been treated with these chemicals. And I mean, if you do allow it, just also know that they're probably being exposed, and that's probably something that should be tested for, checked for, some kind of toxicity test, just to make sure that, you know, you, your family, your kids, and your pets are safe. Thank you for watching this video. Definitely hope it was helpful. If you can, please give me a like and a subscription. That definitely helps me out with the YouTube algorithm, and helps my video to be seen, helps me to continue growing, and definitely gives me the motivation to continue making them. So again, thank you for watching, and until next week, peace.